Hello, seventh graders. As promised, we are going to be looking at two different treaties. The first being the Medicine Creek Treaty that the Muckleshoot Indian tribe was part of. We're focusing on this particular tribe because this is the tribe that we have connections to in Highline Public Schools. So this is the land that they have historically lived on, and so our school district has created a partnership. They've created a partnership with us, so that we are really honoring the history of the land and the people that came before someone like me. And so the Medicine Creek Treaty will be our first focus. The idea of today is that this slideshow that we're going to go through talks about, the who, what, where, when, how type questions about the treaty, so that we can start to understand, like, what was this treaty saying? Like, what did it do? What was its impact? And starting to think about, like, how do we understand, like, different vocab words? So that then, so we'll do some of that practice with this kind of like general overview. Tomorrow for the assessment, that's when we will look at specific parts of the actual treaty, and there will be some words bolded that you will define and like showcase the multiple meanings as is asked in this particular rubric. So today we're just talking about like the treaty more generally, and then tomorrow we'll be looking at the text of the treaty for our assessment. So let's jump right in. For who was involved, we had a number of different tribes. So the Muckleshoot tribe, Nisqually, Puyallup, Steilacoom, Squaxin, Snohomish, and the Staychas, Peaksin, Squeedle, and Swinomish tribes. And the U.S. government. So these were the different tribes that were involved, and then the U.S. government was like the other party. This is an actual photo of the document, which is pretty cool. And so it was signed December 26th, 1854. So quite a long time ago, but like only a couple generations. Like if you think about it, this is just like a couple great grandparents ahead of us. So here's a map. Sorry, it's a little bit fuzzy, but we've got the Treaty of Medicine Creek, and then there's this overlap with the Treaty of Point Elliott. And so the Muckleshoot tribe, and several of these tribes were part of both treaties because of where their territory was. So it's mainly like the tribes that are mainly featured in this treaty were south of the Puget Sound. Here's another map. So again, you can see like how the Muckleshoot are kind of like in both, like sort of next to Medicine Creek and also part of this Point Elliott, which is going to be our next treaty we'll look at next week. So for how did this exchange happen? The treaty was read and interpreted by Benjamin F. Shaw into Chinook jargon. Chinook jargon was a language created from elements from Chinook, Nootka, English, French, and other languages formerly used in the Pacific Northwest. And signatures were in the form of an X. So whenever I think about like signatures being in the form of an X, it makes me wonder like how much is really understood by all the parties versus how much maybe like was lost in translation, literally. So that's something just to kind of wonder about and think about. So these are different like summaries of each article. So there's a bunch of different articles. This goes on for a couple slides. So the first one is that tribes will agree to cede their land. So cede is our first kind of word that I'm like, what exactly does cede mean? So I'm thinking about, okay, like tribes will agree to cede their land. This next one says reservations will be created for said tribes. So that means tribes are going to be going onto reservations. Cede, I'm going to wonder, does that mean share? Does that mean give up? Does that mean trade? So I have some sort of questions about what cede means. So then I might open up another tab and look up cede definition. And Google immediately tells me it means to give up power or territory. And so, I'm looking at that definition and I'm like, okay, giving up, that makes sense in this context from what I know about this historical context, what I'm reading on the page, like that makes sense to me. There are probably other definitions of cede, and so I kind of wonder, like, okay, there might be more to look into there, but for right now, I feel like I have my understanding. Okay, so Article 2, reservations will be created for said tribes. Article 3, right to fish in usual and accustomed grounds. So I'm like, okay, another bolded section. I'm like, okay, usual and accustomed. If I'm accustomed to something, that means I'm like used to it, right? So what this is saying is that the native people, Muckleshoot and other tribal members, have the right to fish where they always have. Then it goes on to say $32,000, $500 paid over 13 years. So I'm like, okay, that, the US government is going to pay them for the land. Okay. Sounds okay. But then Article 5, expenses of removal to reservation land. Removal from reservation possibility. Annuities not to be taken for debt. So, okay, that's another vocab word. I'm like, well, what is an annuity? Annuity. An annuity, is a fixed sum of money paid to someone each year, typically for the rest of their life. So, if they're not to be taken for debt, it means they're not going to be like held against someone. They aren't going to be taken if there isn't the money to take it. That might be one to come back to. Then we've got Article 8, agreements of conduct expected from Indian peoples. So there's a section of this treaty that says there's like a certain way that the native people should be like behaving. Conduct means behavior. Conduct can also, like, just to give a multiple meaning of the word conduct, conduct can also have, like, something can conduct heat. You can also like conduct an orchestra. So that's a good word that has multiple meanings. But in this case, we're talking about behavior and like expectations of behavior and actions. That might be good for the assessment tomorrow. We'll see. Okay. Article 9, ability to ban alcohol and import from reservation. So the U.S. government would have the right to ban certain things from the reservation, I think, unless it's that the tribes have the ability. That's another thing with reading like a description of something, is that sometimes it summarizes in a way that you need more information. So that might be another article to go back to and look at the specific text, because we might get more information there about who can ban. So that might be something to look at the specific text. Article 10 is that the U.S. government will provide schools, shops, medical facilities, etc. Article 11, sorry, I didn't make a new bullet. Slaves are to be freed and will not attain any more. So no more slaves in that area. Article 12, tribes will not engage in foreign trade outside U.S. limits. That's a big one. So as we've been learning about with sovereignty and with treaties are between sovereign nations. So for the U.S. to make a treaty with a native nation, they are saying this is a nation. It's a sovereign country, essentially. I don't know that we use the word country, but nation. Oh, except that the tribe cannot be treated as a nation by any other country. So you can't have foreign trade outside of U.S. big questions about fairness there. And these are the last two articles. Article 13 has to do with when the treaty will take effect. And then the signatures of officials and tribal representatives all marked with an X. There's a lot to this treaty. So you might have more questions. You might be like, that was a lot of information, Miss Katie. Why we got to go into this more? We will. And as you saw, I had questions too. Again, when you look at a summary of something, it's okay to be like, I need more information. It's good to ask questions. So I think what we will do is I'll pull some vocab words from this video for you to write about in your assignment, and talk about, start thinking about this rubric of deciphering vocab and finding context clues. And then again, we're going to practice tomorrow with the actual treaty, at least parts of it. All right. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Sorry if it was a little bit long, but you are all amazing, and I will see you soon.